Okay, so welcome to this video on HSC and UAC scaling. So basically, just for the people who don't know, HSC is the final examination that Year 12 students take here in New South Wales, Australia. It's what determines if you get into university or not, basically. So it determines what degree you'll do and what course you'll do at uni. It'll also determine many other factors in your life. But at the end, it basically is about your application towards uni and how you could use your HSC results to actually help that process. Now, there are three factors that actually come into play when adjusting your marks. So there are two marks, the two types of marks that you actually do. The first is your internal. So your internal is all your school assessment marks. You have 4 assessments every single year, throughout the entire of year 12, because year 12 spans from from term 4 of year 11 to the term 3 of year 12, and you do your HSC examination in term 4. So because of that, you have 4 terms and therefore 4 assessments for each subject. Yeah, and the internal mark is the total weighting. So your school will give a different weighting for every single task that you do. Your internal mark is the total sum of all the weighting factored into the actual marks that you get into the assessment task. For example, your trial exams are usually worth 40% of your marks for your subject, for a subject. Yeah, so therefore 40% of your marks that you get in your trials will count towards your internal marks. That's how weighting works. Yeah, so that's internals. NESA, or the Board of Studies, or the New South Wales Education Standards Authority, they are the people who hold the HSC examination. They don't care about your HSC or your internal marks. Okay, they only care about your rank the rank that you get with respect to everyone else in your cohort, right? So there are 3 factors that actually come into play, 2 of which come into play to find out your HSC mark, so the mark that NESA gives you, and one of which is scaling, which everyone have probably heard of, is done by UAC. So UAC is the University Admission Centre here in New South Wales, and they are in charge of giving you your ATAR, and they are also in charge of giving you your university application decisions, and you have to apply through them for university. So we're going to go through a couple of aspects today. The first of which is going to be HSC Calculations. So that you can see a bunch of numbers on the screen. Don't worry if you don't understand most of them. I'll walk you through each and every single one. So for each scenario, we're going to look at for just one subject. And today we're going to look at chemistry. So most of the people that I know are doing chemistry, or a lot of people actually do chemistry. So because of that, I've decided to look at chemistry as our subject of choice, but this will apply to all your subjects that you do, not just chemistry. It will apply to business studies, it will apply to economics, it will apply to 4-unit math, it will apply to every single subject that you do, right? So as you can see here, we have 5 students, A, B, C, and D. Yeah, A, B, C, D, and E. Yeah, so on the left here, we have their school marks, or their internal marks. So this is the total sum, as I said before, this is the total sum of all the weighted marks, weightings, factored into the marks that they have. So 40% of their trials will count towards the internal marks and everything. Yeah, so as you can see here, your internal marks, your school marks, are sent to NESA. Yeah, but NESA doesn't look at that. NESA does not look at your school marks. Yeah, they look at your school rank, right? They get the school marks, and then they rank you from top to bottom on that cohort. So in your school, from top to bottom, they'll rank you, right? In this standpoint, from 1st to 5th. Okay, then that's pretty straightforward, right? They rank you pretty much. They also take the differences between the ranks. For example, if you can see here that first has a mark of 92, second on the other hand has a mark of 89. Therefore, there's a difference of 3 marks between them. Do you understand? So, they also factor in the fact that you have 3 marks between them. Why they do this is to see this, how much it's spread, how much people's marks are spread throughout the school, right? This, you are being compared not only to the entire state, but within your school as well. Yeah, there are 3 factors. One is your school, one is this, your cohort or the grade that you're in, and as well the entire state. Yeah, so your school marks are then ranked, and we find the gaps. They basically find the gaps, the larger the gaps, the bigger it is. So they find the amount of gap there is between it. Okay, let's just forget about the school marks and school rank for a minute. Yeah, we're going through the HSC marks here. This mark is what you get in the HSC examination. For example, in 2020, the HSC chemistry exam is going to be held on the 9th of November 2020. Yeah, so whatever happens on that exam is what we're going to talk about right now. Let's just say that student A, B, C, D, E get the following raw exam marks. Raw exam marks is the exam mark that you get in the exam. Okay, whatever you do in the exam is what they put towards your raw exam mark. Yeah, they don't give you your raw exam mark. The only 3 things that they give you is these. NESA do not give any of this crap. They only give these 3. Because of that, you need to understand that just because you get 89 in your exam mark doesn't mean that you got 89 in the actual test, right? So what happens is, after you do all of this, you do a process called alignment. Alignment is basically when they align everyone who does the course towards a standard bands. Everyone has heard of the terms bands, yeah? So everyone has heard about band 6s, which are 90 to 100, band 5s, which are 80 to 89, etc., right? So what happens is, they look at all the students. They go through the list and they see which student meets the criteria for a band 6. There are certain criteria for a band 6 which doesn't always change. Yeah, it's stated in the syllabus. This is why a lot of teachers stress that you have to know your syllabus. In your syllabus, it clearly says what it takes to get a band 6. Yeah, so it shows you, okay, for a band 6, the student must have knowledge of drawing graphs. Student must have knowledge of sophisticated scientific language. The student must know SPDF theory. The student must know this, that. Yeah, so if you meet that criteria, even though you got a 78%, you are still a band 6. Yeah, so your mark is actually aligned to a thing, to a specific specific exam mark, right? So they'll go down the list and they'll see which person meets the criteria for a band 6, the lowest person that meets the criteria for a band 6. That person, let's just say they get a 78. Yeah, let's just say they get a 78 in the actual the raw exam mark is 78. Then, if anyone is above that 78th person's exam mark will be 90. That person has met the criteria for a band 6 and their mark will be a 90. The people above them, so for the people from 78 to 100, all those people will be packed in between the 80 to 100 range with variations in between. Yeah, so all these people will get plugged in between to fit into that band 6 category. So if anyone has gotten above a 78, they'll fit into a band 6 category. However, if you are below that 78th mark, then you will be pushed down to a band 5, and they repeat the process until they get to a band 1. Yeah, so that's what your exam mark is. They align your marks so that it matches your ability rather than the mark that you get, right? So for example, if you understand a particular thing really, really well and you match a criteria for a band 6, but in the exam you miss a couple of questions and you flunk out and you only get 78, then they will see that and they'll say, you are a band 6 student. You have the ability to do that, so you will be matched to this person here. That's what the whole alignment process is, right? There's also this really cool website. It's been collated by past HSC students, and it's called the HSC Raw Marks Database. Now, the HSC Raw Marks Database basically says what the raw mark in the exam is and what the aligned mark is for that year. Okay, so if you, for example, here in chemistry, you can see the person that got a 82 here in 2019, the person who got an 82 got aligned to a 91. Yeah, and the raw exam mark is 82. So in the actual test, they got an 82, but in the exam, in the actual exam mark or the aligned mark that they got was 91. Yeah, so therefore they are a band 6. That is how the HSC works. The HSC alignment process works, right? Now, to go back to a couple of other factors, that is your exam mark. Okay, pretty straightforward alignment process occurs. The next procedure that occurs is with your assessment mark, or what some people call the school mark. Yeah, it's not directly from your school, it's actually derived from both your exam mark and your school mark. So your assessment mark basically situates your exam mark in respect to your position at school. So what happens is, okay, your assessment mark will be matched to your thing. So basically, the first person who gets the top highest person in the school, the top highest person in the grade, the first person in the grade, the person who got first in the internals, yeah, 92 E, he will get, or he or she will get the highest exam mark possible in that school. Okay, this is with respect to your school, not with the entire state. Okay, so that the first person will get the top highest exam mark. In this case, the top highest exam mark is 98. So therefore, their assessment mark is 98. Yeah, cool. So that means that, and then after they do that, that is only for the top highest person, the person who gets the top in your class. Okay, after they do that, they will do moderation. Okay, so what they'll do is they'll look at the gap between the first and the second person. In this instance, the gap between this person to this person is 3, right? So therefore, the second person should get whoops. Let me fix that really quickly for you guys. Okay, so as you can see, I've made a mistake. Sorry about that. I'm trying to fix it up in the process of talking. Yeah, let's just do that. So here you can see that in the school marks, this mark is 92. Yeah, the difference between these two marks is 3. That means the difference of marks between the first and the second person is 3 marks. So what will happen is, from the first person, they'll minus 3 marks to the next person, to the person who gets second rank. This will be 95. Yeah. Then they'll go to the third person. What's the difference between these two marks? Yeah. 89 minus 78. That's 11 marks. So what they'll do is they'll get this mark and minus it by 11 to get whatever this person gets. So 95 minus 11 is equal to 84. Do you understand? So this is all wrong. Okay, 84. They'll do the same for every single person until they go up to the bottom. Okay, so 3 to 4, 78 minus 64, that's 14, yeah? So they'll differ this by 14, 84 minus, that's 70. This person gets 70. Okay, now finally from 64 to 45, that's a difference of 19. So it'll be 70 minus 19, which is equal to 51. They do the same thing for the entire school. For your entire school or your entire grade who are doing that subject, they'll do the same thing for the entire thing. Okay? Now, what they'll do after that is they'll average the two assessment marks and they'll average the exam marks. So half of the assessment mark and half of the exam mark to give your HSC mark. In the event that you get a 0.5 mark, they'll round that up they'll round that higher. Okay, for example, here 91 plus 84, it's 175 divided by 2, that's 87.5. In this instance, they'll move that up to an 88. Okay, so 78 and 70, that's 74. Okay, 95 and 98, that's 97. Okay, 93 and 51, that's 72. Okay, and then 98 and 51, that's 75. Okay, let's go back to presentation mode. Okay, so now you can see that even though you do really bad in your school marks, for example, this person here gets a 45 in his internals. Yeah, he worked so hard to get his internal mark, his exam mark up to a 93. Yeah, his raw mark was 87. He got aligned to 93. Okay, then even though he got his internals really bad, his average was pretty good, 72. Yeah, so the reason why this whole ranking system happens is every school has different difficulties of examinations, right? Some schools test their students with harder tests. Because of that, their students are prone to get lower marks compared to the entire state. However, if you were to give that assessment to a school with a lower, cohort with a lower intellect, then they will obviously get lower, right? To account for this, that is why they don't use school marks. Sorry. Some schools have easier tests, so it's easier to get 90s and 80s in. But other schools have harder tests. Because of that, they try to find a way to use an assessment that everyone does, right? And the only assessment that everyone does is the actual HSC. So they use this to actually find out the assessment mark or the school mark from your exam mark. This is why teachers stress the fact of getting, helping everyone, right? When you help everyone, let's just say this is a standard distribution, right? This is the normal distribution of like normal schools. Yeah, normal schools, the people get like, near there. That's the highest amount of people. These people get, 50s, 60s, like that. Don't worry about the numbers, okay? Now, these people, on the other hand, these people work together. This cohort works so well together to actually push up their marks really close together. When your marks are really close together, then there's a very low chance of a drastic drop between the exam mark and the assessment mark. If you see here, the drastic drop between 64 to 45 really impacted here. 70 to 51. Even though this person got 93, no one helped him in his school. No one helped him in his actual school between the start of the year and the trials. No one helped him. So because of that, he flunked school. He didn't know what to do. Because of that, his assessment mark was actually impacted. Not only that, everyone's was, right? Everyone's assessment mark was impacted heavily due to the large standard deviation or the large spread of the marks. If your marks are way closer together, this would not occur. You want to make sure that everyone works together from day one of year 12. If everyone works together from day one of year 12, your standard deviation or the gap between people's marks will actually be lower. Therefore, you're not only helping other people by teaching them or helping them with stuff, you're also helping yourself. Because at the end, with your HSC, you're also helping yourself by getting a better assessment mark, which also counts towards your final HSC. Yeah? So, that's why the teachers stress the fact of everyone working together. It is very important that everyone works together to ensure that everyone gets a fair chance. Not only that, and everyone gets a really good mark as well. Okay? Now, this is what NASA does. At the end of all of this, they'll send these 3 boxes to you: your exam mark, your assessment mark, and your HSC mark. Your HSC marks are then split into bands, so they put this person gets between 90 to 100, so he gets a band 6, band 5, band 4, band 4, band 4. This is what occurs during the HSC assessment of moderation and alignment marks. Okay, when they align the marks, there are 2 aspects that the NESA does. Alignment is when they push everyone, they fill in the gaps between people, and they push in people who have reached the level of a band 6 or a band 5. Okay, moderation, on the other hand, is when they take your internal marks ranks, and they also take the gaps between the people to fill in the assessment marks. This is why the people who get first in the class always get first in the class. Yeah, they get the same exact mark. Okay, so not only do you need, this is why, if you see here, this person didn't even do well in the actual, like in school, 45, but in the HSC he did really well. Yeah, but either way, his assessment mark was really bad anyway. His assessment mark was a 51. That's pretty bad, not gonna lie. Okay, so you have to not, HSC is not a sprint. You can't sprint through HSC and expect for you to get a really good mark at the end just because you did really well in your exam. Okay, you need to do well succinctly from the start to the end to make sure that you have really good build up of study technique and other marks and good rank to ensure that you get a good HSC mark at the end. If you flunk that first test, it doesn't matter. Build up your stamina, build up your willpower, build up your motivation to actually push in through and do better in other tests. Okay, I can speak from personal experience when I was actually last in the entire grade for chemistry, from Chemistry Accelerated with my first assessment. I thought that I didn't have to study for HSC, I didn't have to do anything. If I do the exam, I'll be fine. Okay, then I went to realize when I actually researched about the HSC that, damn, this actually matters. So I had to put in effort, and I went from last to now around 20. Okay, so it is possible. It is possible to go from last to top 20. You just have to put in the effort. You have to have motivation. Do not give up. HSC is not a sprint, it's a marathon. The people who do well in the HSC have a good study technique, have a good eating plan, have a good sleep pattern, and they can actually do well. That's why people do well in the HSC. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. I am telling you 100 times. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Now, let's look at what UAC does. UAC is a University Admissions Center, right? So what they do is the process of scaling. Now, I think I have, so UAC releases this thing every single year. Okay, before that, we'll go back to what NESA sends to UAC, yeah? NESA, or the people who calculate your HSC marks through moderation and adjustment, alignment, yeah? They actually send your HSC marks. That's the only thing they send to UAC. They don't sell any of this bullcrap. They only send the HSC marks to UAC. Okay, so this is the HSC marks that people got. Oh, sorry, I have to fix that in. These are the marks that people got in the HSC. Okay, so what happens is they do a distribution curve like this one over here, the same one that you looked at. Okay, they do a distribution curve, okay, to like this one over here. For those of you who can't see the camera, for like this one here, and they plot everyone on that list. Then they look at the percentiles. So if you're in the top 99%, you'll get a certain scaled mark. Okay, so scaled mark, how it's achieved, let's just take an example. So a popular example would be sport. If you were to compare sport, right? So let's say you have cricket players, you have tennis players, you have rugby players, you have hockey, you have soccer, all these different types of sports, yeah? How do you know which is the best sport? You don't. You don't know which is the best sport. Why? Because they're not all the same, right? You can't just tell people, okay, yeah, you bat well, so you're really good, okay? But like soccer players, on the other hand, play with their foot. They don't bat well, so you don't know. You can't compare that skill thing. You can't be objective. You have to be widespread. That's why the scaled mark, how it's derived, is by comparing not only how you do in that actual examination, but how you do across the board. For example, if you were to get they compare you across the board. For example, people who do 4-unit math usually do well in all their subjects. So for example, 99 in English, 98 in physics, chem they get like 99s, and they pop off, basically, okay? And that's why 4-unit math scale is so good, because they know that everyone else, the people who get really top marks in that, they compare them and they see that they get really high. Yeah? So what happens is, after they look at all the people's marks and stuff, they then go and say, oh, okay, so this person gets 99s in every single test. That means this exam must be hard. If they got a 78 in this exam, but they got 99s in every single other examination or subject, that means this examination must be hard. If they look at another person, they get 98, but then in every other examination they get like 40s, then you know that subject is pretty bad. Just putting it out there. But another thing is, not everyone does the same subjects. This is why English is mandatory. They compare everyone with respect to how they do in English, how the top people do in English. That's why you also want to do really well in English. If you see here, these are the short answer marks, the short answer response questions. There are 5 questions in the HSC. If you see here, the purple ones represent questions that are specific to English studies. There are 3 different types of Englishes that are available to HSC students: studies, standard English, advanced English. English studies, the first 4 questions are from the English studies syllabus. The last one is from the English standard one. English standard, standard. Okay, it's up to that level. The first one on standard is from English studies. The next 2 are from actually the standard syllabus, or from the standards, norms. The last 2 are from advanced. Advanced is the same. First 3 from standard, and the last 2 first 2 from standard, and the last 3 from the advanced syllabus. They do this to ensure regularity. They want to compare everyone. Okay, regardless of what English you do, they compare everyone. Okay, everyone does at least one standard question, and they compare everyone on that question. You don't know which question it's going to be, but you have to do well in English as well. Okay, that's the whole point as to why people say do well in English. Okay, now, pardon me. So then what they'll do is they'll take their percentiles. So they'll take like what percentile, that mark lies in what percentile. For example, the 88th mark, a person who gets an 88 mark will lie in the 73rd percentile. Person who gets 97 lies in the 95th percentile. Then what they'll do is they'll correlate what percentile goes to what scale, what mark, or what scaled mark, right? Because this is to ensure that they can compare everyone on the same scale, right? If you have one person, you can't compare music to 4-unit math, music 1 to 4-unit math, right? They're totally different subjects, totally different skill sets, and people who do them vary in talent and in ability. That's why they compare English. They do that to ensure that you actually get a fair mark. Okay, because you getting a band 6 in English isn't the same. A band 6 in music 1 isn't the same as you getting a band 6 in 4-unit math. They are totally different because they are totally different courses and they have different skill sets that are needed and different difficulties. Okay, that's why they're scaled. All subjects get scaled down. Okay, if you see here, this is, you can search it up. It's called the UAC Scaling Report. They release it every year on March, the following year on March, after the HSC, and they'll show you what HSC mark correlated to what scaled mark. Yeah, so that you can see that all the subjects here get scaled down. Everyone thinks, oh yeah, if I do 4-unit math, I'm going to get scaled down, or if scaled up. If I do music, I'm going to get scaled down. That is not right. No subject gets scaled up. There is no subject that gets scaled up. If you search it up online and you go to that report and you go down to page 45, is it 45? I don't even know. Page 45, go down to 4-unit math, yeah? 4-unit math here. 47.5 gets scaled down to a 47.3. 49 gets kept at 49. 46 gets scaled down to 45.9. They all get scaled down. Every subject gets scaled down, regardless of what subject you do. Okay, it's for a reason. Okay, subjects are marked out of 450 for this thing because they count per unit. They don't count for the 2 units that you do. For example, chemistry is worth 2 units. They actually half it to ensure that they count it for 1 unit. Okay, that's why sometimes in your ATAR they'll calculate half a subject, or just half of that unit as subjects marks, because you stuffed up that subject or something. Some people, that's why scaling also helps in a way, because for example in physics, if you get a 92, it isn't the same as you getting, it's better for you to get a 92 in physics than getting a 98 in music. There are totally different skill sets, there are totally different abilities, and there are totally different difficulties. So that's why your scaled mark in your physics is actually better than you getting a 98, your scaled mark for a 98 in music. Yeah. So here you can see that everything gets scaled down. It's just a different degree of how much you go down. For example, here a 32 in biology gets scaled down to an 18.5. Okay. But a 33, okay, let's just say that's a 32. A 33 in chemistry gets scaled down to only a 24.5. There are different degrees of how much they go down. Okay, they are not constant. It's just a different degree of how they go down. If you want, you can search up the scaling report, and it's on the scaling report. On the scaling report, it clearly says how or to what degree or to what scaled mark it goes down. Okay, now after they do that, what they'll do after the scaled marks, they'll get your scaled marks for every single subject that you do. Okay, every single subject that they do, every single unit that you have, they'll pick out your scaled marks. From then, they'll pick out the top 10 marks, including English. So they'll pick out English first, the top 2 units of English. So if you're doing 4-unit English, they'll pick out the top 2 units of English. Then they'll look at the top 8, the rest of the 8. They'll look at the 8 marks, or the 8 scaled marks, and they pick out the top 8. From that top 8, they'll top 8 subjects, right? So you need top 8 units. Top 8 units. So they'll pick out the top 8 units. They'll combine all of that scaled mark together, and there will give you your aggregate. Your aggregate is actually out of 500. Okay, your aggregate is your total sum of all your scaled marks, and it's out of 500. That is not your ATAR. What they'll do after that is they'll get everyone's aggregates, and they'll put them into another graph similar to the mark distribution. Okay, they'll put into another graph, and they'll see who falls in the top 0.05%. Who falls in the top 0.05% fall in the 99.95 percentile. That is your ATAR, 99.95. They do that for every 0.05 increment. Yeah, so 99.9 they'll see. Then they'll go 99, then they'll go to 98.5. 9.95. Yeah, sorry, 99.9, and they'll go to 99.85, and so on and so on, every single increment to see who falls in that bracket. That is why multiple people get the same ATAR. ATAR is not a mark, it's a rank. You are ranked against everyone, and it's your percentile in which you fall in the entire cohort. Right? Now, they actually don't rank, they rank you in the entire cohort of the state. Right? So everyone that you started year 7 with, you get ranked against. So that includes people who dropped out of high school, people who went to TAFE, people who went to went to overseas or went to other schools overseas, people who dropped out of the HSC syllabus and started doing IB. All of those people are compared, okay, for the HSC. They are compared, and then what happens is they'll compare everyone and they'll give you out your percentiles. Your HSC mark is like your time. Yeah, so if you're running a marathon, your HSC time, your HSC mark is like the time that you took to run the entire marathon. But the position that you get in the marathon is the actual ATAR or your ATAR that you get, right? So if you get a 99.95 ATAR, that means you fall in the top 0.05% of the entire state. Because they compare you to the entire cohort that you started year 7 with, this is why the average ATAR isn't 50. The average ATAR, on the other hand, is actually 60. Okay, it's around 60-ish. I think so. Okay, now, last of all, I just want to reiterate one thing. HSC is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You need to put in effort throughout the entire year to actually get really good. Another thing I want to pull your eyes to is the percentage of students in performance bands. So this shows you what percentage of students roughly got that performance rank in, or the band 6s or band 5s in that year. So for example, here you can see that only 1% of students got a band 6 in standard English. Yeah, but here 13% of students got a band 6 in advanced English. There's a drastic difference between those two, right? So the thing is, to take home, you don't have to worry about scaling or adjustment. You don't have to worry about scaling for UAC right now. You only get penalized for scaling if you fall below the mean. For example, here you can see here the mean is 34.8, right? Yeah, the mean is 34.8. If you fall below that 38 mark, you get dropped down heavily. The degree of the amount that you go down by from your HSC mark to your scale mark goes down drastically. Just make sure that you want to make sure that you want to fall above the mean. If you fall above the mean mark that you get in the HSC subject or whatever subject you're doing, that means that you're okay for scaling. Don't worry about scaling. It's fair. It's a system that is fair. Okay, it's been tested multiple times and it's proven to be fair. Okay. Secondly, you want to work together. That's the first thing. Don't worry about scaling. Okay. There's no point in choosing subjects that just because a subject has a lower degree of scaling or lower degree of going down, such as physics or math, that shows that subject is difficult. Only people, it's very hard to get a band 6 in that subject because it's hard. It's actually hard to do that subject. Scaling depends on difficulty. If you choose Music 1, it's an easy course. Yeah? It's an easier course than 4-unit math. That is why it scales down lower. Okay? Now, finally, the two other factors that I want to talk about is the moderation. Moderation, you want to ensure that everyone works together. If everyone works together, okay, the marks between each person, the gap between each rank will lower. If everyone lowers their thing, you will follow the red bell curve. Instead of the black one, you follow the red one. When you follow the red one, everyone will get advantage. All your assessment marks will be really close together, and therefore you'll get a better overall HSC mark. This third thing is about alignment, right? In alignment, the only way to know that you're in alignment is to read your syllabus. Know what you have to do to get a band 6. If you read the syllabus, it clearly says for every single subject, there's a syllabus for every single subject in your HSC, in the HSC. It states what you need to know, what you need to do, what you need to get to get a band 6, etc., etc. It's like a Bible. You want to know your entire syllabus for every single subject that you do. By doing this, You know what to do to get a band 6 in an answer, what they'll be testing you on, what type of questions they'll be testing you on to get a band 6, what type of questions they will ask you. Okay, not only that, you want to look at past HSC papers. Past HSC papers and their marking guidelines will show you which questions are meant to be a band 6 question. Okay, a band 6 questions means that a person that gets a top mark or full marks on that question gets a band 6, right? So because of that, you want to, number one, look at the marking guidelines for past papers on NEST's website. They have free past papers for every free past papers and marking guidelines for every single subject out there. Second thing, you want to know your syllabus by heart, right? I can tell you from experience that when I did HSC chemistry, the only reason I did, I'm doing pretty well is because I knew the actual syllabus. When I knew the syllabus, I knew, okay, I have to know this, I have to know that. I don't have to know this. Why am I learning this? Let me go back to the syllabus. I have to know this, right? By knowing what you need in the syllabus, you waste time looking at stuff that is outside the syllabus. You could do that in your spare time, yeah, 100%, but don't take that into consideration when you go to the HSC examination, because that will not be tested. There is no point in you knowing that for your actual HSC. If you want to know that for fun, go ahead. No one's stopping you there. But when it comes to the HSC, don't take that risk. Secondly, the actual syllabus. By knowing the syllabus, I was able to filter out. I was about to create good notes. I was able to create notes that actually are succinct, right? Are able to answer every single dot point in the syllabus. If you can answer every single dot point in the syllabus, you can get a band 6. You can get a band 6 if you can answer every single dot point in the syllabus to the best of your ability, okay, to a top mark range. Okay, so do past papers, look at past papers, and look at the syllabus for alignment. Okay, so that is the end of the whole HSC and UAC guide with alignment, moderation, and scaling. If you need any help or if you need anything, please DM me on Instagram or do anything. I'll try getting back to you. If I can't, I'm really sorry. If there's any other questions, just let me know. I'll try helping as much as I can. Hope you enjoyed the video. Yeah, okay. Hope this helped, basically. Thank you again for listening. I'll be back with another video. I don't know. We'll see how this channel goes.